Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about dishonesty and in particular how it's hard to detect sometimes in yourselves and others for various reasons that I'm going to go into. This video was brought on by an article that I read a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about the article for a while since reading it. The article was written by Slavoj Žižek, who you might already have heard of. If you haven't heard of him, Wikipedia describes him as a Slovenian continental philosopher, and he has a cult following on YouTube where he posts his lectures. I haven't seen much of him myself, but he wrote an article about Jordan Peterson, and since I had heard of him and I have friends who like him, I thought I'd read it. The article is called, "Why do people find Jordan Peterson so convincing? Because the left doesn't have its own house in order." It's on the Independent website. After reading this article a few times in preparation for this video, I still don't understand what that title means, but I'm not going to focus too much on the actual article. I'm just going to talk about the one idea that I got from the article that I thought was really interesting. But it seems to be Jordan Peterson's obsession with facts that is of interest to Žižek in this article. And he goes into this idea that there's two different ways of being dishonest. The first way, which is sort of more obvious, which most people are aware of, is what he calls hysteria. Hysteria is when someone has a strongly held belief that they try to justify with lies or things that they know aren't completely true. But the thing they might believe in might actually be a real good in the world. It might be a great thing to believe in, but the fact that they're lying about it is dishonest. It's plain dishonest to tell lies about something or to leave out information that is important to that thing. Everyone sort of knows about that. You shouldn't lie to justify things even if you're really sure about them. But he then goes on to describe what he calls obsessional neurosis, which is the second way of being dishonest, where you use facts and tell the truth in order to sort of cover up your inner pathological beliefs. I don't really like any of the examples that Slavoj Žižek uses in this article, so I'm going to make up my own example for this one. So I could be misrepresenting what he's actually saying, but even if I am representing it, I think what I've got out of it is still somewhat interesting. So if we imagine that I am making fun of a fat person or being intentionally mean to a fat person because I don't think they should be fat. If I tell a fat person that they're disgusting, that they need to lose weight, that their appearance is abhorrent to me, if I tell them that they're a drain on society by using up the NHS taxpayer money to pay for their obesity, I could be doing that genuinely. I could actually be concerned for their health and be trying to give them advice or encourage them to lose weight. But I also might not be doing that. I might just be trying to fuel my own ego by indulging in my pathological desire to make another person feel bad, someone who I don't like because their appearance is abhorrent to me. I could just be going on a power trip, making fun of this person, making them feel bad, making them feel low so I can feel high. But I can justify it by saying, oh, actually it is unhealthy to be that fat and they should lose weight. So I'm doing a good thing by telling them to lose weight, telling them all these facts about heart disease, diabetes, things that will kill them. That will certainly help. I see this quite a lot online. It's hard to actually tell without knowing someone, and even if you do know someone, it's hard to tell what the motivations for what they're saying is. But judging by some people's behaviour, it's hard to believe that they are actually concerned for the person they are talking to. You could apply the same thing to what feminists call slut-shaming, making a woman usually feel bad about how many men she slept with, and you could cite the dangers of catching an STD or getting pregnant or the emotional trauma it might be bringing on herself by accident. But if I don't actually care about the woman and I actually am not concerned with her health and her status in life, and I'm just trying to make myself feel better by bringing her low, like in the other example, then it's dishonest to lie about my motivations like that. To say, oh, I'm just worried about you. It's not good for you to be such a slut. That is a form of dishonesty. And I think people generally have a grasp of this instinctively. They try to detect it's quite natural to try to detect someone's motivation for saying something when judging whether you should listen to them or not. Although you might also be paying attention to how factually accurate what they're saying is. People tend to also investigate the motivations for saying things and judge the content of the speech based on what they perceive the motivation to be. Personality, I don't know what to call him, he's not a politician or he's an activist, I suppose. He's an anti-immigrant activist in the UK, you probably heard of him. And he speaks out against Islam and the Islamification of the UK. If we compare his criticism of Islam to Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's an ex-Muslim herself, who was raised in a Muslim country, you can see why some people would find Ayaan Hirsi Ali criticising Islam to be more palatable than Tommy Robinson criticising Islam, because if you're not in the market to hear criticisms of Islam, which a lot of people in the UK aren't, they don't want to hear that Islam needs reform from anyone, to hear Tommy Robinson talking about it, you can easily dismiss him and say he's racist, he's anti-immigrant, he's bigoted, and it doesn't help that he has a sort of more working class accent, that people sort of have this image of him being an uneducated, ignorant racist. And it's easy just to go dismiss everything he says, don't listen to him. But when Ayaan Hirsi Ali gives interviews, writes books, and speaks out against Islam and immigration, I think she's taken more seriously, especially by people who are not willing to listen to that sort of thing. It's harder to dismiss her because it's not obvious what her motivations are if she's not just being honest. So you kind of are forced more to take her seriously and, take her at face value. Maybe she really is just criticising Islam and she's not racist. It's sort of, you have to start looking for other motivations, which is why you see people going, oh, there's a lot of money in X. People say there's a lot of money in anti-feminism. I don't think that's true, but I think I'm getting off track here. I think what I'm trying to say is that it's dishonest to lie about your motivations, to say that your opinions are based on facts when they're not. They're based on something else. They're based on a belief that you held before you found out the facts. It's based on an irrational disgust of fat people, or even a rational disgust of fat people. It's still pathological. You're still, if you're pretending to care about them and telling them they're fat, then it's dishonest to pretend that you care when actually you're just disgusted by their fatness. I also found myself being suspicious of environmentalists in the same way, even though much of what they're saying is probably correct. Global warming, I believe, is a real phenomenon, and deforestation. There's a lot of problems with the environment, and I think that the environment should probably be taken care of. But the kind of people who become hardcore environmentalists, sort of full time, if you will, the Green Party in the UK, I perceive them to be anti-human, they're anti-progress, anti-technology. They seem to think of humans on the planet as a bad thing, that humans are a sickness that the planet is plagued with, and that there needs to be less humans so that the planet can be healthier. Well, it's natural to be loving of nature and to want to preserve it, but I'm of the personal belief that should come secondary to nurturing of humans. The poorest nations on Earth are the ones who are benefiting most from fossil fuels at the moment. It's technology that pulls the poorest nations in the world out of poverty and makes the people healthier and happier and live longer and live better, more fulfilling lives. And I don't think that should be held back for the sake of the environment. I don't want to spend ages going off on a tangent about environmentalism, but I just think it's dishonest of the Green Party to say that they are against fossil fuels and greenhouse gases because it's bad for the environment, and what's bad for the environment is bad for people. I think it seems to me that they care more about the environment than they do about people, and you can kind of tell because they consistently reject nuclear power. They want to close down reactors in the UK that would be an excellent alternative fuel source to fossil fuels, but it's not a natural fuel source. It's not a natural source of energy. They only want to replace fossil fuels with solar cells and wind farms, and not nuclear, because nuclear is dirty and it's bad for the environment. Well, if it's bad for the environment, but it's much better for humans. I think it's just much more realistic, and they seem to be motivated by a kind of disdain for human life on this planet. And of course, that doesn't make them evil. I'm not saying that they're bad people. Some of them are very nice people, most of them, in fact. But I think that they have this sort of, they watched Fern Gully as a kid, or Princess Mononoke, or Avatar more recently, and they have this narrative in their head of man against nature, and it's nature that needs to be nurtured, and man is bad, and man has to stop using the cars and the factories that are making us so wealthy and so much better off. So when they make arguments saying like, oh well, saving the planet will save the people, I find that rather dishonest. And that's just why I was thinking about after reading Slavoj Žižek's article. Oh, if you're wondering, by the way, the whole reason he went into that is because he was trying to attribute this obsessional neurosis to Jordan Peterson, which I think is, he never even gave that many examples. I've read it so many times I still can't exactly figure out what he's saying, but I think what he's trying to say is that he can't fault Jordan Peterson on his facts, so he has to fault him on his motivation, which I think is kind of funny if it's true. But again, I don't really understand this article. I'll leave a link to it in the description. You can read it if you like, and let me know if you understand it. Of course, the thing about this obsessional neurosis, if that's what you want to call it, although I don't really understand why it's called that, but this second type of dishonesty, the sort of dishonesty of motivation, you could call it, it's very hard to diagnose. It's a thought crime, right? You can't actually accuse somebody of it outright and know that you're right about that, because even they probably don't know what are the motivations for their own actions. So it's kind of hard to tell. You can kind of point out hypocrisy that would suggest that they are not being honest about their motivation, but it's not something that I would suggest you go around pointing out in your enemies. It's more something that you should look out for in yourself, I think, and it's something I've been trying to look out for in myself. And when you find a fact that supports what you already believe, and it kind of makes you excited that, oh yeah, I think I'm right, well, you might then justify it to yourself that you've based your belief on those facts. And that's what I see a lot, is people saying, I base my beliefs on facts, and they really believe it. And some of them might be telling the truth, but I don't really believe that there are a lot of people who base their opinions on facts. I think a lot of people, myself included, believe things and then get excited when they find facts that back them up, and then after the fact sort of justify that that's why they felt that way all along. I think that's just a realistic way of thinking of human motivations and the way people think. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic, and of course people do have their minds changed by facts, but those facts are usually presented by someone that they trust or respect, and that's what changes their mind. They don't just read a list of facts from nowhere, right? Information always comes from a source. It's often these charismatic characters who end up changing your mind, and then you can kind of pretend to yourself it's the facts they were saying that you found persuasive, but I don't find that so easy to believe. I think it's probably the charismatic character who was telling them to you that, or who made it funny or made it interesting, and that's really what's winning you over. Of course, it's hard to tell. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that for now. But since starting this channel, a few people have asked me if I have a Patreon or a tip jar or some sort of way that they can support the channel and give something back because they've been enjoying my videos. And if you're one of those people, you've been enjoying the content and you want to give back, then please join me on Sunday for a live stream. I'm going to be hosting to raise money for cancer research. I'll leave up the donation page for a few days afterwards, so that if you miss the stream, you can still donate if you like. I would really appreciate it. Sometimes it really feels like doing this channel is just pointless, and I'm just wasting my time here in front of this camera. But if I could actually raise some money for something that actually matters, then I'd feel really good about that. So please look out for my stream on Sunday, the 29th of April. I'm going to try and stay up for a few hours to cover people in different time zones and different schedules. And thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.